Shocking, why they erased 35 impossible inventions from your textbooks. I'm gonna tell you something and brace yourself. This changes everything. 35 inventions didn't just fade, they were erased. Patents sealed under national security, labs burned down by bad luck, inventors smeared, careers wiped. Are you sitting down? Because if even half of them saw daylight, the global crisis eases in a decade: energy, water, food, debt, all of it. So who profits from the chokehold? What I'm about to show you isn't speculation. It's paper trails, court files, and a law from 1951 that still locks ideas away. Trust me, you're not ready. Who built the knowledge embargo, and why now? Here's how we're doing this. 3 pillars. First, the embargo machine, who kills knowledge and how they do it without leaving fingerprints. Second, the 35 keys, the specific technologies that kept bumping into the same wall from the 1940s through the 1990s. Third, the exit plan, workable ways to break the choke points without breaking society. What counts as erased? 4 buckets: sealed, patents flagged and placed under secrecy orders; classified, defense and dual-use labels, export traps, born secret zones; smeared, crank labels, rigged tests, reputations torched; bought then shelved, strategic acquisitions, continuations that never issue, submarine filings that surface just to block others. Timeframe matters. The 1940s wartime lab culture bled into peacetime. The 1950s and 1960s built utility monopolies and standards that froze out misfit breakthroughs. The 1970s oil shocks should have opened the floodgates. Instead, emergency powers, price games, and code barriers snapped shut. The 1980s? Consolidation, patent thickets, and a finance turn that prized margin over mission. By the 1990s, the playbook was perfect. Stakes are not abstract. Energy volatility spikes food prices and wrecks small factories. Grid fragility means hospitals buying diesel backups they can't afford to run. Debt spirals because core inputs stay scarce by design. Talent flees when labs are told to de-risk until nothing new survives. Meanwhile, synchronized crises, energy, finance, supply chains tighten together. The window to change this isn't wide. Our method is simple and stubborn. Paper trails, patent families that go dark after acquisition, continuity chains that stall, rescissions that never come. FOIA pulls on the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951, the law that still lets agencies block patents, detrimental to national security. By 2017, official counts showed 5,784 secrecy orders in effect, with categories like power supply, propulsion, and unique materials. That's not rumor, that's in black and white. We cross-check standards minutes where rival classes got referred to subcommittee and never returned. We track liability memos that kept safe, proven gear off the grid because no one wanted to be first. We listen to inventor testimonies, then verify them against test reports and procurement records. We separate fact from myth. No magic carburetors, no water from nowhere. But we do follow credible claims that were tested, worked, and then disappeared. Guardrails because this has to hold up. We mark what's verified, what's likely, and what's open. We don't invent quotes. We don't inflate numbers. If a source is weak, we say so or drop it. Where records are sealed, we stay with what can be shown. The order existed, the category was flagged, the publication was blocked. So first we map the machine. Then we open the vault, tech by tech. And finally, we walk you out with a plan to end the embargo without waiting for permission. The embargo machine, how knowledge gets killed. Look, I'm gonna tell you something uncomfortable. The chokehold isn't a single villain. It's a system that learned how to suffocate ideas without leaving fingerprints. Start with the gatekeepers. Defense says national security. Energy says grid reliability. Finance says risk management. Standards bodies say not mature enough. None of them swing the hammer alone. Together, they build the room the hammer swings in. Here's the spine of it. In 1951, Congress made wartime secrecy permanent. The Invention Secrecy Act lets agencies flag patent applications detrimental to national security. Sounds reasonable until you read the category lists. Power supply, propulsion, unique materials. In 2017, the official count of active secrecy orders stood at 5,784. That's not rumor. FOIA letters confirm it. Some orders die in a year. Some sit for decades. Meanwhile, the public record is a blank space where knowledge should live. While that legal backstop sits in the basement, the patent triangle plays upstairs. First game, continuations. A company buys a small inventor's application, files continuations forever, and never lets a claim issue robust enough to threaten their core business. The idea is alive on paper, but it can't compete in the wild. Second game, submarine filings. A portfolio surfaces just long enough to warn everyone away, then disappears into strategy. Third game, strategic acquisition. Buy the startup, praise the team, and the line. The press release says synergy. The lab door says closed. What nobody knew at the time, because it isn't advertised, is how standards finish the job. Committees love safety and interoperability. Both matter, but watch the pattern. A rival class shows early promise, say amorphous metal transformers with huge cuts in core losses. On paper, they slash waste on the grid. In the room, they get kicked to a subcommittee, then stuck behind test procedures designed for silicon steel. Procurement specs locked to proven designs. 10 years pass. The savings never reach your bill. While something else was happening, the soft kill. You don't have to ban a breakthrough if you can make it uninsurable. Liability memos travel faster than prototypes. A utility council writes unknown failure modes, unacceptable exposure. A hospital CFO reads warranty risk. A city buyer hears no certification track yet. And journals, they're not conspirators, just cautious. Insufficient replication, out of scope, needs longer-term data. Incremental work sails through. Step changes stall, but there's a hard lock when they need it. Secrecy orders bar publication, export, even conversation with foreign partners. Violating one can get you prison time. Attorneys say appeal is thin, compensation rarer than it should be. In practice, you're stuck. Wired covered cases where inventors waited years just to get told, still secret. An academic study in 2024 measured the fallout. When secrecy orders hit, follow-on inventions drop. Not just patents, actual downstream work. Choke the disclosure, you starve the ecosystem. This was the moment everything changed in the corporate world, too. In the 1980s, mergers thinned the herd. Antitrust took a nap. Finance became the mission. If a technology threatened to collapse a cash cow, even by making it cleaner, faster, cheaper, it was framed as cannibalization. Legal padded the risk memo. IRR models buried anything with long payback and public spillovers. The result wasn't a dramatic bonfire. It was a steady freeze. Case patterns are boring by design. Discredit, slap the crank label, point to 1 week demo, move on. Delay, insist on standards that don't yet exist, then hold the meetings that never end. Dilute, strip the breakthrough to a feature inside a legacy product, ship it in a form that can't bend the curve. Disappear, acquire, continue, sunset, rinse, repeat. Get this, the embargo machine doesn't need to win every fight. It only has to make time your enemy. A small lab runs out of cash. A city election flips and the pilot dies. A procurement cycle resets. By the time the team crawls back, the market's mood has shifted. The next grant says low risk, near term. Now remember, this isn't about magic boxes. It's about classes of tech that threatened rents. High-efficiency grid gear that cuts losses you pay for every month. Materials that run hotter, lighter, longer, which shrink fuel bills and outages. Engines that sip, not gulp. Waste turned to baseload power quietly at neighborhood scale. Comms that route around toll booths. Payment rails that settle without middlemen. None of that is mystical. All of it hits somebody's margin. Unknown to most of us, there's also the culture piece. During the 194's war push, secrecy saved lives. Afterward, classification inertia stuck. Temporary controls never fully rolled back. Dual-use tech, energy materials, sensors got pulled into big defense umbrellas. Universities signed IP pipelines to industry partners who managed commercialization. Translation, gatekeeping moved earlier in the life of an idea. The plot thickens when you trace language. FOIA clusters show agencies lifting the same phrases that turn up in private briefings. Premature deployment risk, grid stability concern, unverified safety envelope. Standards minutes echo corporate decks. Funding spikes align with kill decisions. It looks less like chaos, more like choreography. So who profits? Anyone selling scarcity and fragility. If the grid bleeds heat, you finance more capacity. If engines waste fuel, you sell more fuel and maintenance. If city procurement can't verify performance, it rents the same old backups at a premium. If data must cross guarded moats, toll collectors smile. Here's where it gets crazy but practical. It only works as long as we believe nothing better passed the test. The embargo machine bets you'll never see the files, the rescinded orders, the shelved pilots that quietly worked. We've mapped the playbook. With that in hand, we pull the first thread and step into the 1940s, where the norms took root and the lock clicked. The 1940s breakpoints, war labs to black boxes. 3 years earlier, inside windowless rooms, the rulebook changed. Scientists who just built radar and cracked codes walked out of the war with a new reflex. Lock it down first, ask later. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. The secrecy made sense when submarines lurked offshore. But when the shooting stopped, the habits didn't. They hardened. To understand why, we need to go back to the war labs. Los Alamos, MIT's Rad Lab, Bell's microwave rooms. Teams solved impossible problems on insane timelines because everything flowed in tight circles. Clearance defined who knew what, and need to know was law. After the surrender, nobody flipped a switch and said, "Okay, open season." Agencies kept the machinery humming. Temporary orders rolled forward. Dual use became the magic phrase that pulled civilian breakthroughs under defense umbrellas. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Industry had tasted the power of uniform standards. Wartime procurement had simplified specs to move metal by the mile. In peacetime, those habits kept factories full, but they also froze lanes. If your idea didn't fit the post-war template, it hit guardrails. Not a villain's plot, just the path of least resistance for committees that didn't want surprises. Here's where the irony bites. The 1940s weren't just about bombs and radios. The labs also tripped over early energy anomalies, odd heat signatures in materials, strange conversion effects at small scales, data that didn't fit tidy models yet. Engineers flagged them, logged them, and then watched as classification tags swallowed the follow-up. Not because someone whispered free energy, but because any hint of novel power or propulsion now looked like a national asset. Safer to classify it and kick the can. Standards started doing quiet work too. Once you lock a spec for transformers, fuels, bearings, you create momentum. Buyers train to the spec, test rigs mirror it. What nobody knew at the time was how those frozen specs would sideline misfit wins. Take high-density storage proofs. Early flywheel concepts, steel rotors in vacuum housings, showed startling charge-discharge cycles in lab notes. They weren't grid-ready. They were clunky. But the properties were real, instant response, absurd cycle life. Instead of a red flag that said, "Develop this," the note said, "Non-standard failure risk." Filing cabinets closed. The conversation died. Unknown to the young post-war scientists, patent policy was shifting under their feet. Wartime withholding had been emergency law. Then, right at the edge of the decade, peacetime thinking set the stage for permanent tools. Agencies made lists, what to scan, what to flag, what to hold. Power supply wasn't a category anyone debated on TV. It lived in memos. If your application touched it, the review didn't happen in public. The human moments were small but telling. A metallurgist in Ohio shipped a sample of an amorphous ribbon, thin, glassy, with low magnetic loss, to a colleague in New Jersey. The letter back praised the numbers, then asked, "What's the certification path?" There wasn't one. Utilities were ordering post-war growth with iron cores and copper windings by the ton. A procurement officer circled experimental and moved to the next file. In the aftermath, the metallurgist didn't stop. He just aimed for parts that fit existing specs. The big leap waited for a decade that never seemed to arrive. Now remember, this is the 1940s. Debt from war is still on the books. Politicians promise stability. Scarcity economics turns into a business plan. Build more of the proven, sell security at scale. The unintended side effect is a culture that sees novelty as noise unless it salutes the flag in a purchasing guide. Early heat-to-power tricks, thermoelectric gradients tested on factory exhaust, got logged as curiosities, good enough to power a sensor in the Arctic. Not worth a standards fight on the shop floor. What nobody outside the circles saw was the subtle shift in journals. Editors weren't censors, they were cautious. A paper on high-temperature ceramics that hinted at engine parts running hotter and cleaner drew reviewer notes like, "Promising but lacks service data." Fair notes. The catch is, service data requires pilots. Pilots require specs. Specs require committees. You see the loop. Meanwhile, the universities cut deals. Post-war funding ran through defense lines. Professors who'd led wartime projects brought that money home. Campus IP policies evolved fast. Discoveries moved to tech transfer offices, then into industry partnerships. The pitch was simple: commercialize faster. The practice was slower. If the partner's main business didn't love the disruption, the path narrowed. Get this, the first missing link wasn't a UFO engine. It was boring, practical, high-density storage and materials that promised lower losses and higher temps. They could have set up the 195s for a different energy arc. Smaller plants, tighter grids, less waste. Instead, momentum won. The black boxes didn't just hide secrets, they hid options. Here's where it gets crazy but clear. Nobody in 1948 said, "Let's erase the future." They said, "Let's keep the ship steady." The war labs taught them to close ranks. The standards taught them to prefer what fits. The money taught them to avoid public failure. And the patents, about to live under new, permanent eyes, taught them to treat power as a sensitive word. So we leave the 1940s with a locked door and a key nobody thinks they need. The habits are set. The categories exist. The early blips are in drawers. We step into the 195s believing progress is a straight line. It is. It's a lane they drew and guarded. The 1950s, 1960, utility monopolies and the Great Stall. While that locked door from the 194 stayed shut, something slower and heavier moved into place. Utilities consolidated. Local co-ops and oddball municipals got folded into state-regulated behemoths. The rate-based model took over. Build bigger plants, stretch more lines, earn a guaranteed return on whatever sits in the ground. Look, I'm gonna tell you something unsexy but crucial. When you profit by adding capital, you don't love tech that shrinks it. Their perspective, stability mattered. Blackouts made governors furious. So planners drew 10, 20-year curves and fed them into mega projects, coal units, steam turbines, step-up transformers, long corridors of copper. Anything novel had to prove it wouldn't wobble the curve. Grid-scale storage. Interesting, but where's the tariff? Heat to power from low-grade exhaust. Cute for labs, but where's the test code? Meanwhile, accounting rules rewarded safe bulk and punished small, nimble gear. 3 days earlier, in a standards boardroom, language hardened. Trial procedures were written around silicon steel transformer cores everyone already knew. Procurement templates baked in equivalents that weren't equivalent. If you came in with amorphous metal cores that cut core losses by 60–70% on paper, you hit a strange wall. Not no, just not yet, needs more service data. And then this is the play. Service data couldn't exist because the specs refused you onto the system. Doors open, then loop back to the hallway. Meanwhile, labs shifted their posture. Big company R&D, flush from wartime wins, got told to de-risk. Incremental innovation, product line support, manufacturing readiness, phrases that sound smart and feel safe. Senior engineers still sketched bold ideas on napkins, adiabatic engine parts that run hotter, direct conversion tricks to turn waste heat into watts, flywheel prototypes in vacuum cans. But inside review committees, the notes kept circling: unstable, manufacturing risk, field failures catastrophic, safer to polish what ships. The auto sector learned the same dance. By the late 1950s, unit sales and parts revenue set the tempo. Light, clean, durable, these traits helped drivers, but they hurt service bays. Carb tuning, gasket changes, frequent rebuilds, those were profit centers. Quietly, projects that stretched oil change intervals or promised engines running cooler and cleaner got boxed as experimental. Few demos leaked into magazines, then citations stopped. The decision would matter decades later, when every MPG started to count. What nobody knew at the time was how liability memos became vetoes. A utility council didn't need to say ban amorphous cores. He just wrote, unknown aging profile, warranty exposure unacceptable. A hospital facilities chief didn't have to ban a new heat-to-power module. He just forwarded, certification pathway undefined. Insurers read the same notes and priced risk like a warning siren. That's the soft kill. You don't outlaw the idea, you make it unbuyable. Meanwhile, something else was happening in semiconductors. Early off-ramps for lower power, longer life logic were visible. Alternative device geometries, gallium-based switches, high-efficiency power stages, ideas that could have cut waste at the edge of every machine. But planned obsolescence paid the bills. Shorter life cycles meant recurring sales. The research didn't vanish, but it got shunted into niche programs, defense corners, or roadmaps labeled post-197. By then, the ecosystem would be set around heat-hungry silicon and big central plants feeding dumb loads. Are you sitting down? Because standards lock-in gets weird at street level. City procurement wrote specs mirroring state utility guides. If those guides didn't list a novel storage bank or a low-grade heat harvester, city buyers couldn't even ask for it. Engineers tried to write performance-based specs, but vendors challenged them as non-competitive. So departments reinserted the old language to avoid delays. A 6-month pilot died in paragraph 13 of a purchasing manual nobody remembers signing. Here's a micro story. A plant engineer in Ohio ran a weekend test on a duct heater retrofitted with thermoelectric plates. Tiny output, but steady. He sketched a path. Capture just a slice of waste heat across the mill, power sensors, reduce maintenance calls, maybe backfeed trickles at shift change. Monday, his boss liked it, but asked for UL listings, interconnect approvals, insurance letters, and a vendor with 5 years of field data. None existed because nobody had let them exist. The file went to a drawer labeled Revisit Q4. Trust me, you're not ready for how circular it feels when you read the minutes. Committees cited grid stability to block storage pilots, then cited no operational data to deny the next application. Utilities flagged customer safety to stall small generators, then sold diesel gensets with known hazards because they had a spec. The motive wasn't mustache twirling. It was comfort, revenue models, and habits that paid. Now remember, this is the 1960s. Highways spread. Suburbs need air conditioning. Base load rises like a clean ramp for investment bankers. Every new ton of cooling locks the system tighter to centralized generation and long wires humming day and night. A radical efficiency jump in motors or transformers would have shaved that ramp. That sounds great for households. It's awkward for rate-based growth. The Great Stall isn't a crash, it's a glide path that avoids steep climbs. By the end of the 196s, the machine had taught itself the rules. Big beats small, proven beats better, safer beats cheaper, and anything that doesn't fit the template waits outside. On paper, progress marched on. On the ground, misfit breakthroughs froze at the gate. Everything was about to change when oil politics slammed into this comfy grid. The 197s should have cracked it open. Instead, someone patched it. The 1970s, oil shocks, silent solutions. While that was happening in boardrooms, tankers stalled and lines wrapped around blocks. Odd even gas days, price spikes, governors on TV begging for calm. On paper, a perfect moment for efficiency to break through. In practice, crisis became cover. Emergency powers tightened control. Price caps and allocation rules rewarded volume players who knew the maze. New tech that cut demand, it threatened every deal that ran on scarcity. Get this, behind the panic, engineers were quietly solving pieces of the puzzle. Low-grade heat lives everywhere, factory stacks, dryers, kilns. Teams built modules to sip that waste and turn it into power. Not miracles, just steady trickles that add up. But code officials didn't know where to file them. Not a generator, not an appliance. Without a category, permits stalled. Liability memos did the rest. Unknown failure envelope. A safer choice, they said, was diesel backups and more copper. You know the ending, another year of waste. Meanwhile, something else was happening in engines. A kid from El Paso rolled a black box into the spotlight and the story got strange fast. Tom Ogle, 20-something, grease under his nails, pulled the carb and fuel pump from a Ford Galaxy and ran vaporized gasoline straight to the chambers. In 1977, newspapers showed him driving under watch, claiming 100 to 160 miles per gallon. Local professors looked at the rig and didn't see obvious fraud. He filed a patent, investors circled, then the pressure came. From Ogle's perspective, he'd cracked a lever big enough to move the market. But contracts got messy. Rights split between marketing and development. Regulators sniffed around. A company with rights drew an SEC complaint, its finances, not the tech, freezing momentum. Engineers who wanted to replicate couldn't get clean drawings. He kept at it anyway, then hit a wall no one his age could punch through. In 1981, he was dead. Alcohol and drugs, the coroner said. The box went dark. The filings sat in a system that didn't want to touch them. Now remember, we're not saying a vapor rig breaks physics. We're saying it challenged a fuel system that fed parts and service for decades. And in the fog of crisis, every bureaucracy had a reason to wait. Safety, emissions, standards, warranty risk. If it worked, it starved sales. If it failed, it burned reputations. Safer to let the story become an urban legend. Safer to tell the public the carb myth is a hoax and move on. While the public argued about miracle carbs, factories tried to harvest heat. Thermoelectrics sat on pipes and made little watts with no moving parts. Thermophotovoltaics looked at glowing furnaces and saw electricity in the infrared. Both needed time on real lines. Both hit a quiet wall, no procurement path. Committees asked for certification tracks that didn't yet exist. Vendors couldn't sell without the certs. A loop inside a loop. Advanced materials were stuck too. High-temperature ceramics and coatings pointed to engines that could run hotter with less cooling. Ceramic engine concepts, the adiabatic dream, moved from papers into test cells. In Japan, DMOS ran without coolant, higher thermal efficiency baked in. The US defense side liked ceramics for missiles and blades, but export rules fenced off the best fibers and processes. Civilian programs lost momentum. Labels like brittle, uneconomic, and immature manufacturing turned into polite vetoes. By the time the data got good, the appetite had shifted back to safe metals and additives. Meanwhile, grid gear that slashed waste faced a standards freeze. Amorphous metal transformers were not science fiction. Lab numbers showed 60 to 70% cuts in core losses versus silicon steel. In an oil shock, that's free energy. Utilities ran pilots, then parked them behind procurement specs written for the old cores. The story was always the same: compelling but needs more field data. Field data required orders. Orders required specs. The circle closed. Years went by. Your bill stayed padded by heat you never asked to buy. Consumer culture turned disposable at the worst moment. Planned obsolescence fit the scarcity model. Sell more, replace sooner, keep factories humming. Durable machines with hard coatings and long service intervals didn't fit the margin plan. A ceramic that makes an engine last twice as long sounds great, unless you sell rebuilds. A coating that ends wherein pump seals sounds smart, unless you sell the seals. The 197s taught investors a lesson. Efficiency that pays the user often threatens the middle. The media playbook hardened as well. If a lab claimed a leak, the headline teased, then the follow-up framed it as fringe. Extraordinary claims, no peer review, one-off demo. Fair cautions, also useful to anyone who liked delay. A documentary or two raised eyebrows. Was big oil buying and burying? Skeptics answered with physics and asked for data. Then everyone moved on. The result wasn't where true. It gets crazy, it was noise that kept buyers scared of being duped. The oil shocks could have forced a pivot to misfit text storage at the edge, cleaner engines, low-loss grids, heat to power everywhere. Instead, the emergency gave regulators and incumbents the tools to tighten the lanes. Allocation, certification, export controls, liability, and standards all sharpened. It looked like order in chaos. It felt like progress. It functioned like a patch over a crack. By decade's end, the panic cooled, but the habits stuck. The public forgot the lines. The system remembered the levers. The 1980s promised competition and freedom. What arrived was consolidation and a colder patent war. The 1980s, consolidation and the patent Cold War. While the panic faded, boardrooms sharpened their knives. Mergers thinned the herd. Conglomerates snapped up labs, then streamlined anything that didn't feed next quarter. Antitrust took a nap. Shareholder value became a creed. Look, I'm gonna tell you something plain. If a breakthrough shaved a cash cow, it died in a spreadsheet long before it hit a test cell. From their perspective, this was discipline. Discipline meant fewer bets, bigger moats, tighter control of IP. The patent office turned into a battlefield: claims, continuations, terminal disclaimers, a chess game with a clock. Lawyers taught engineers to think in fences. Block the lane, slow the rival, license nothing you can smother. That was the new music. And when that wasn't enough, they built thickets, a forest of filings that made moving forward expensive, slow, and legally scary. Meanwhile, something else was happening in certification. High-power electronics were finally ready to jump. Wide bandgap devices, cleaner switches, cooler power stages. But safety became a polite break. Test codes lagged. Certification paths weren't written. Labs could show devices running cooler at higher frequencies, but buyers heard, "No listing yet, talk next year." Next year slid to 3. The momentum bled out. Here's where the ceramic story turns. Japan ran hot on adiabatic engines. Ceramic liners, pistons, turbo housings, parts built to hold heat where it works and ditch coolant where it drags. DMOS ran, efficiency ticked up. The knock on ceramics, brittle, hard to machine, was real, but progress was steady. In US circles, the narrative hardened early. Manufacturing risk, field fragility, uneconomic at scale. Budgets shifted. Programs slipped behind closed doors or into defense corners where export rules fenced the best fibers and matrices. By the time some materials were commercial ready, the window had moved. Gas got cheap. Finance said pass. Telecom told a parallel story. The tools for distributed compute were appearing: smarter edges, local processing, peer networks, but walled gardens paid. Bell had been broken up, sure, but vendor lock revived like a reflex. Proprietary standards slowed open links. The dream of homes and small shops crunching and routing without tolls got delayed behind integration roadmaps. That lag kept central choke points valuable and kept oversight simple for anyone who liked it that way. Meanwhile, grid hardware that could have trimmed losses kept tripping over procurement. Amorphous metal transformers weren't rumors, they worked. Core loss cuts were huge on paper and pilots hinted at meaningful savings. But the standards were old and the test rigs mimicked the old. Committees asked for long-term field data while purchases starved the data they demanded. A few footholds formed overseas. Here, it felt like walking through syrup. The finance turn sealed it. MBAs ran IRR models that punished public spillovers. If a technology made neighborhoods resilient or cut maintenance across an industry, the private buyer ate cost while society banked gains. Those gains didn't show up in the cell that mattered to the CFO. So the killer features, long life, field repairability, lower losses, looked value destructive. Cheaper today, pricier tomorrow, won every time. Patents became weapons, not bridges. You could see it in the language. Freedom to operate meant paying a toll or paving a dead end for someone else. Small inventors got offers they couldn't refuse. Cash now, then their filings folded into portfolios that never saw daylight. Continuations stretched for years, keeping rivals nervous while never granting a claim strong enough to ship a threat. If an interloper tried, litigation posed as due diligence. Bleed them until the runway ends. Get this, there was also an insurance layer. Underwriters read the same memos and priced novelty like arson. Magnetic bearings with near-zero friction. Great numbers, but what's the failure mode at scale? Flywheel banks with instant response and deep cycle life. Containment risk unacceptable. Thermophotovoltaics sitting by industrial furnaces turning glow to power. Non-standard hazard, no policy. You didn't need a ban. You just needed premiums that scared buyers back to diesel and dumb loads. Some bright spots broke through. Gallium nitride hinted at cooler, smaller power everywhere. Labs showed tenfold improvements in certain stages, but without clear cert paths and big anchor orders, the market stayed a rumor mill. A boutique vendor shipped to niche gear, the grid never felt it. And in software, closed ecosystems vacuumed value out of the edge, selling convenience while keeping control. If data traveled through moats, toll keepers ate. Meanwhile, FOIA trails and standards minutes read like deja vu. Premature deployment risk. Unverified safety envelope. Grid stability concern. The phrases echoed across sectors. Agencies used them. Private briefing decks mirrored them. The effect was always time. Stall a quarter, force a rebid, trigger a new test no one's staffed to run. Delay is victory when cash burns and patience runs thin. A micro story, a Midwestern utility trialed a high-density flywheel array for substation smoothing. It handled spikes, cut wear on transformers, played nice with power factor quirks. Operators liked it. Legal flagged novel failure, catastrophic release, demanded a warranty rider's stack no vendor could write. The pilot ended. Press said nothing. The old gear stayed. By decade's end, the patent Cold War felt normal. R&D talked like legal. Legal talked like finance. Finance talked like God. And the embargo machine, it didn't slam doors. It taught everyone where not to knock. The 1990s would inherit a perfect playbook and a longer list of things we were told didn't work. The 35 keys, energy liberation 1-7. 7 keys, real power right now. If these ran, life shifts. Bills drop, air clears, lights stay. First, high-cycle ceramic turbines. Tiny plant, basement size, no drama. I see white-hot cores grin, no coolant. Higher temps, higher efficiency. We pipe waste heat to showers. We feed clean power upstairs. Hospitals ditch diesel, towns relax, action. Rigs screamed hot and steady. Clipboards whispered brittle. Unknown failures. Cert stalled, the room iced. Impact, fewer peakers, quieter grids. Second, advanced Stirling modules. Silent boxes. Heat becomes watts, no bang, just a sealed breath. I bolt one on an oven, it hums steady as a clock. Ovens, kilns, server exhaust, free fuel. Buyers ask, what code is this? Insurers ask, who carries risk? Bids vanish, the hum fades. Impact, thousands of tiny generators sipping waste. Third, thermophotovoltaics, TPV. Infrared glow into electricity. You've seen steel slabs bleed light. I frame a cell by the furnace. Dust shields click in. Power flows. Factory bills sag. Emissions fall. Procurement mutters non-standard hazard. They reach for yesterday's checklist. Impact. Hidden baseload in every red glow. Fourth, direct carbon fuel cells. Solid carbon in. Clean power out. Coal char, biomass char, certain wastes, no flame, just electrons walking. Exhaust runs quiet and lean. Coal towns keep jobs, air heals, then came the hedges, purity. Ash handling. Code path unclear. Folders close, DMOS go dark. Impact, the dirtiest corner repainted clean. Fifth, high temperature superconducting cables. Low loss. Big cities breathe. Copper bleeds heat, this doesn't. Cooled, not cryo-crazy. Tight tunnels. I watch trial loops like corridors. Numbers look unreal. Utilities flinch. New maintenance playbooks. Unknown failures. They stall. Concrete keeps pouring. Impact. Cooler tunnels. More load downtown. Sixth, flywheel banks, not batteries. No fire risk. Rotors float on magnetic fields. Vacuum cans, instant response, deep cycles. I stand in a substation. A cloud passes. Lights don't blink. Pilots smooth spikes like butter. Insurance types catastrophic release in bold. Specs run back to diesel. Impact, resilience you can't even notice. Seventh, ocean thermal microloops. Warm top, cold deep. Gentle gap. Islands pay blood for diesel. I lay pipe. Water breathes cold. Microloops hum. Hotels cool free. Data centers sip steady baseload, permits snarl, rights bite, finance yawns, too small. Call us later. Impact, sovereign energy for coasts. Here's the thread I pull. Ceramics run hot and compact. Sterling sip what slips past. TPV steals the glow itself. Direct carbon cleans old fuels. Superconductors cut city bleed. Flywheels make it all snappy. Microloops set a calm heartbeat. Clinics never flicker, bills drop. Air stops scraping lungs tonight. Same stall each time. Strong pilots, careful committees, insurance dread, yesterday's standards. The meter's choke stays tight. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. Power without permission breaks rents. That's why they pressed pause. Next, we bend matter itself. Cheaper, tougher, longer life, less cost. The 35 keys. Materials and manufacturing, 815. We bend matter to our will. Right here, right now, less waste, less heat, less maintenance, more life. 8 self-healing polymers, cracks close like skin. I score a panel, heat it. Microcapsules bleed, the scar seals, bridges don't spall, seals don't creep, pipes stop weeping in silence. Field crews climb fewer ladders, then lawyers ask irate nightmares. Specs worship century-old paints, the fix stays trapped in journals. 9 amorphous metal transformers, glassy cores, losses collapsed, trust me, this one hurts. In the 1980s we had it, swap ribbon for silicon steel, core losses dropped 60–70%. Pilots ran cooler, hums faded. Meters showed watts we stopped wasting. Committees clung to old tests. Procurement demanded equivalent materials. Insurance typed unknown long-term aging. 10 years of not yet. Bills kept feeding the heat. 10 ultra-hard coatings. Tools stopped dying early. PVD, CVD, thin armor. I watch cutters stay sharp. Pumps run cool, no drama. Uptime climbs, burns don't happen. Vendors selling spares get nervous. They whisper application-specific. Hard to repair. Specs lock legacy alloys in place. Productivity wins. Budgets say no. 11 room temperature sintering. Strong parts without furnaces. I press activated powders cold. Grains neck. Density climbs fast. Shops print cure bolt same week. Carbon and capital both fall. Safety waves, powder handling flags. QA screams new process variants. Requal for every single part. Distributed manufacturing stalls in paperwork. 12 shape memory alloys. Motion without motors, wires, noise. Nitinol flexes cold, snaps hot. Valves open with a whisper. I see silent linkages breathe. Low power, few failure points. Aerospace hides them in corners. Consumer gear flirts, then ghosts. Standards want motor-style boxes. SMA doesn't fit the template. 13 high-strength aerogels. Light, fireproof. Insulation that bites. Wrap pipes, vans, ducts tight. Energy bills fall like rain, walls thin. HVAC shrinks quietly. Procurement scores cost per square foot. Lifecycle savings get ignored again. Fire codes love old foam's paperwork. Insurers type smoke profile unknown. The blanket waits behind forms. 14 directed energy machining. No toolware precision all day. Lasers, electron beams, exact edges. I drill microholes in blades. I harden patterns that last. Tolerances hold. Downtime slides away. Small shops prove it works. Gatekeepers ask for missing ASTM. Big primes build private cells. The rest watch the door stay heavy. 15 recycled composite reclaimers. Pull fiber back from trash. Supercritical fluids. Pyrolysis. Solvolysis lines. Respectable lengths. Clean strands out. Specs chant virgin only traceable. Aerospace says prove modulus forever. Civil says unknown drift sorry. Landfills swell. Prices swing stupid. Recovery tech takes scraps, not crowns. See the money trail, right? Cooler transformers kill peakers quietly. Hard coatings end spare part empires. Aerogels shave peak loads daily. Sintering puts factories in garages. SMA cuts motors from machines. Directed energy pushes failures right. Reclaimers calm supply shocks. The embargo didn't shout classified. It whispered standards lag, liability risk. It worshipped bad procurement math. 5 years of data before orders, nice trick. Time kills interest. Budgets reset. Champions leave. A decade later, scarcity feels normal. Matter got cheaper, tougher, smarter. Transport should have flipped next. Move fast, burn less, we go. The 35 keys. Mobility and engines, 1622. Move fast, burn less, pay less. If these ran, streets change. Engines whisper, air clears, bills drop. 16 HCCI, diesel work, gas clean. I mix the charge perfect. Compression lights it, no spark, more pushed from every drop. City fleet slash fuel today. Smog dips without speeches. Action, night dyno sessions, brutal. I chase microns and milliseconds. Phoenix heat. Detroit cold starts. It held until factories flinched. Hold tolerances on bad days. Standards wanted flat emissions everywhere. Insurers wanted zero misfire risk. The lane narrowed. Momentum bled. Impact, diesel miles per gallon vibes. None of the diesel pain. 17 variable compression heads. Tune squeeze on the fly. Cruise wants lean, high squeeze. Heavy pull wants knock safety. I change geometry mid-run. Wild cams, eccentric tricks, sliding heads. Dynos showed real gains fast. Manufacturing called it fussy pricey. New failure envelope, they said. A few niche models tiptoed in. The window closed when gas fell. Finance shrugged. Maybe next decade. Impact, one block, thrift and punch. 18 ceramic engines. Adiabatic dreams. Keep heat in the cycle. Stop dumping it to coolant. Efficiency climbs. Friction falls hard. Japan ran no coolant DMOS. Ceramic liners. Hotter burns. Lighter guts. Early parts cracked like steel parts. Wrong handling. Old habits. Fair, but the curve was rising. Then. Manufacturing risk. Export fences and a quiet, uneconomic veto. Programs paused. Slipped into defense. Vans and tractors could have sipped. Shops could have skipped radiators. Impact, less weight, less lost, fewer fixes. 19 linear alternator pistons. Skip the crank circus completely. Straight line shuttle, magnets cut coils. Electricity every stroke, clean. Hybrids love that sweet spot. Range extenders hum like clocks. Few moving parts, easy seals. Benches sang at fixed frequency. Buyers asked, where's this fit? Legacy drivetrains had no shelf. Codes had no neat box. Insurers wanted long fatigue curves. Catalog pages went blank. Impact, tiny gens that just worked. 20 air hybrid braking. Store stops as pressure. Tank smart valve combo machine. I launch buses on air. Fuel sips to keep pace. Fleets save on pads diesel. Crews already know tanks valves. Procurement waived EV calendars. Codes hugged yesterday's comfort. Insurance flagged tank rules hard. Shops balked at dual systems. Impact, cheap wins, faster paybacks. 21 ultracap buses. Charge in seconds, run forever. No chemistry to baby daily. Electrostatic banks, million cycle calm. Top-up bars at stops. Routes never sweat range anxiety. Pilots juiced under overhead arms. Then standards dragged their feet. Interop fights. Fire rules. Spacing wars. Finance hated new depot. Battery vendors whispered niche toy. Impact. Fewer dead packs. Steady ops. 22 magnetic bearings. Friction deletes itself basically. Rotors float on fields, no oil, nowhere, wild speeds. Turbochargers, flywheels, compressors grin. Labs proved it, plants nodded. Insurers asked failure at speed. We showed catches, damped the spin. Specs still loved bronze and oil. Old habits wrote the purchase. Impact, gear that doesn't grind budgets. None of this is magic, it's physics lined up right. HCCI and variable squeeze ring fuel. Ceramics keep heat where needed. Linear alternators ditch dumb linkages. Air hybrids and ultracaps bank stops. Mag bearings erase friction's tax. The machine didn't shout no. It whispered, not ready, risky. Then it waited you out, managers rotated, budgets tightened, gas dipped, urgency died, standards asked for data purchases block. By the time doors opened, the spotlight had moved on. From their view, delay looked wise. From ours, it was loss. Move fast, burn less was here. We walked past it. Next, water and waste, the unglamorous empire where scarcity rents thrive. The 35 keys, water, waste, and food, 2328. We're in the guts now. Water, trash, food, daily life, bills, outages, spoilage, right here. Look, I'm gonna tell you something, fix these, families breathe easier. 23 capacitive deionization. CDI, low-energy brackish desal, modular skids, I roll a container off, plumb brackish in, flip polarity, salt sticks to plates, then releases, meters drop fast, pressure stays low, ops love start-stop control, pre-treat is simple, no drama, procurement waves, reverse osmosis specs. Show seawater numbers, they say, we're inland, that's nonsense. Insurers ask membrane failure myths, orders dry up. Well, stay salty, impact, cheaper taps. Farms reclaim acres. 24 forward osmosis packs. Disaster water in a pouch. I dunk the bag. Wait. Clean sips flow through, no power. Shelters drink first. Med tents smile. Pipes burst. Still okay tonight. Codes stare. What is this? Procurement buys pallets of bottles. Plastic mountains grow. Roads clog. Finance says volume is low. Packs price high. No rollout. Impact. Minutes to drinkable, not days. 25 plasma gasification. Trash to fuel. Arc torches crack garbage clean. Syngas feeds engines. Slag turns glassy. I stand by the torch glow. Smell is gone. Gauge is steady. Landfill bulges stop growing. Permits call it incineration anyway. Utilities stay non-standard gas. Neighbors hear plasma. Picture fallout. Approvals stall. Vendors bleed out. Impact. Dumps shrink. Trucks idle less. Trash pickups become power plants. 26 anaerobic digesters too. Small town baseload from scraps, sealed bioreactors, tuned and warm, food waste in, manure in, methane hums, gens run steady, heat loops back to the tank. Rural grids stop flickering nightly, then interconnects stall in forms, net metering pays in pennies, gas rules want pipeline polish, cities flare instead, bills stay mean, impact, odors down, trucks have, lights calm. 27 controlled environment microfarms, year-round greens near homes. Lead racks sing plant spectra, leaf temps perfect, loops closed. I taste basil grown 5 miles, yields per square foot unreal. Schools ask for lunch greens, utilities like steady baseline loads, zoning shrugs, industrial use only. Grants chase acreage, not racks. Grocers squeeze margins to dust. Scaling stalls outside rich hubs, impact, fresher food, fewer trucks, local jobs. 28 phase change cold packs, hold temp, kill spoilage quietly. I freeze to target bands, packs ride with fish, milk, vax, hours pass, temps don't wander, compressors cycle calmer, docks hush. Routes skip diesel idling in lines, contracts worship gensets and fuel, specs score unit price not loss, insurers can't price integrity logs. Sensors in packs prove it anyway. Impact, smaller fridges, cleaner air, food arrives alive. Get this, the loop repeats here. Yesterday's standards, liability ghosts, procurement worships sticker price, lifetime value gets ignored again. But watch how they link. CDI feeds microfarms clean water. FO rides when mains explode. Plasma eats what digesters can't. Digesters feed steady baseload to racks. Phase change smooths the last mile. Waste heat warms winter greens. FO pouches refill with CDI taps. Plasma slag hardens cooler roof pavement. A micro story I watched. Coastal town, wastewater plant first. Packaged digesters bolt behind lagoons. Biogas spins a tiny gen. Heat loops into a winter greenhouse. CDI polishes a brackish well. Vertical racks glow. Greens snap. Phase change packs ride the ferry. No diesel freezers droning anymore. Residents notice 2 things. Food tastes better. Bills stop jumping. Then the inspector arrives with RO forms. The utility demands big grid interconnect studies. The ferry's insurer wants old freezer specs. The cluster freezes in paperwork. The pilot dies in paragraphs again. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. Water, waste, food are the root. Kill pilots here, rents live everywhere. Approve them, middlemen starve fast. Once these stand up, compute and comms lock the gains. The 35 keys. Compute, comms, and control, 2933. Water's sorted, waste flows right. Now the brain wakes up. Chips, light, links, trust, 5 levers, no permission needed. 29 gallium nitride power stages. I swap hot silicon for GaN switches, flip faster, run cooler, magnetics shrink. Bricks go quiet, every watt saved is freedom, servers breathe, chargers stop cooking, factory drives stop wasting heat. Labs showed clean waveforms fast, 10-fold speed in switching tests, buyers nodded, certs dragged, codes wrote for yesterday's physics, insurers typed unknown long-term risk. Delay 1, bills kept climbing, impact if unleashed. Cooler halls, smaller substations. 30 photonic interconnects. Light not heat. Copper cooks rooms for nothing. I route bits as light. Loss drops. Heat drops hard. Backplanes jump with fiber threads. Latency falls. Fans calm down. Floor space frees from chillers. Procurement hugs legacy buses still. Interop fears. Guarded ecosystems. Finance hates long replacement cycles, so photons wait in crates. Impact. Cheaper compute per watt years sooner. 31 distributed mesh networks. Towers fail loud. Mesh whispers, I drop radios on rooftops. Packets hop neighbor to neighbor. Storm hits. Messages still move. Clinics text under blackout orders. No carrier, no gatekeeper toll. Regulators ask spectrum questions. Incumbents chant interference safety. Procurement wants one throat always. Mesh has none. That's power, impact. Comms that don't beg permission. 32 neuromorphic coprocessors. Tiny chips that spike like neurons. I run them on coin cells. They learn on the edge. No cloud, no bandwidth tax. Sensors spot leaks and faults. Robots adapt without phoning home. It fears model drift liability. Standards have no neat box. Insurers echo the caution memo. Cloud vendors love your uploads. Edge brains threaten that feast. Impact, privacy by default, uptime by design. 33. Secure hardware enclaves. Trust in the chip itself. I measure firmware. I attest. I sign events in silicon. Auditors verify on site fast. No vendor portal required ever. Business models hate losing leash. Compliance simplicity, they whisper grinning. Standards tilt to remote gates. We keep keys, they lose rents. Impact, devices you trust locally, final. Here's the weave right now. GUN starves the wallwart tax. Photonics chills racks to silence. Mesh roots around broken towers. Neuromorphics decide where they live. Enclaves prove who did what. A neighborhood plant spins steady. Flywheels catch blips you never feel. Meters don't bleed heat to air. Packets flow like water at night. Nobody stands at the toll booth. From their side, same stall tools. Interference risk. Model liability. Ecosystem maturity. Safety later. Copper rebates. Cloud lock-in. GUN boxed into chargers only. Photonics parked behind next refresh. Mesh called reckless in hearings. Edge AI stuck on eval boards. A micro story you can taste. Coastal hospital storm on radar. I wire GUN converters to a micro turbine. Mesh blankets wards and basements. Neuromorphic mics learn pipe noise. Servers speak light across racks. Enclaves sign every change live. Towers fall. The hospital doesn't. Charts sync. Pumps keep rhythm. Auditor visits nods at uptime. Then demands carrier-grade certs anyway. Demands cloud logs we don't need. Plan rewrites to please paperwork. The better system loses on paper. Trust me, you're not ready. The choke points look boring up close. Checkbox here. Vendor list there. A writer written before prototypes. But once these 5 stand up, cheap power, cool links, local brains, provable trust, there's no going back. Are you sitting down? Wait until you see the last 2 keys, not wires or waves this time. Money and rules, the throat. The 35 keys, finance and governance tech, 3435. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. These last 2 don't hum, they cut leashes. Money and rules, the throat, right here. 34, narrow purpose digital cash. Instant settle. No panopticon, cash with rails, not chains, I tap. Funds land now, no 2% tax for breathing. Grocers pay farmers same day. Crews buy fuel mid-storm. Micro turbines sell next door power, no bank in the middle. This is going to sound crazy, but the fees are the choke. Kill them and pilots live. Action, I spin up rails. Transit cards clear in seconds. Utility credits move like lightning. Market stalls settle by dusk. Receipts locked to purpose only. Fuel, food, repair parts done. Then the walls arrive fast. AML risk. Fraud, micro story you can systemic feel. Exposure, coastal town, audit gaps, sirens rain sideways, we push storm stipends live, only phones buzz, crews roll now, pumps start, lines shrink, then a memo drops. Full histories tied to IDs. Non-compliant, they say with confidence. We reroute through legacy cards, fees bite, days pass, morale dips, momentum dies in a paragraph. 35 open audit ledgers. Receipts no one can bury, bids, change orders, deliveries, payments, stamped in a shared log. The public scrolls the truth. Ghost contracts hate this light. Bridges show up on time. The plot thickens for grifters. Action, I publish the line items: who bid, who won, when, what shipped, what got paid. Honest vendors breathe easier. Rigged games lose oxygen. Bureaucrats flinch, call it burdensome. Lawyers mutter, vendor sensitive. PDFs try to crawl back, we don't let them. Now remember the decades. The 1940s hid labs. The 1950s loved monopolies. The 1960s worshipped stability. The 1970s weaponized emergencies. The 1980s crowned finance. The 1990s perfected the playbook. The 2000s sold walled gardens. Money and rules greased all of it. Get this, these 2 unlock everything. Cash without drag buys time. Logs without shadows buy trust. A hospital wires go in today, because payment clears today, period. A utility buys glassy cores. Citizens watch losses, invoice linked. A mesh survives budget season, because checks hit on milestones right there on the ledger. Behind the scenes, they know, that's why they shout safety, like it's nuclear for nickels. If money moves clean, delay dies. If books are glass, stalling hurts. You feel it in small wins. Farmer paid at delivery, finally. Digester funded without dead months. Transformers scored on real losses. Trust me, you're not ready. Stand these 2 up and watch. The other 33 fall in line. Not yet loses its voice. Receipts talk. Graphs sing. Middlemen stop writing the weather. The paper trail, suppression patterns across decades. While the tech stories feel scattered, the filings line up like footprints. You start to see the same shapes. Patent families that glow for a year get bought, then vanish. Standards notes that read like carbon copies. Liability memos that show up in different industries with the same 6 phrases. Look, I'm gonna tell you something plain. This isn't myth, it's paperwork. From their perspective, it's just diligence. A small lab files a patent on a high-efficiency converter. The claims look broad. A bigger firm licenses to collaborate, then files a continuation, trims the edges, and keeps the family pending. Meanwhile, a standards group debates test methods that only the old gear can pass. When the small lab tries to sell, buyers ask, does it meet Standard X? It can't because Standard X was written around yesterday's physics. Therefore, the sale stalls. Therefore, the startup misses payroll. Therefore, the portfolio sells back to the same firm holding the continuations. The patent record says merged. The market calls it silence. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Universities quietly took the same off-ramps. A professor's group tapes together a working prototype, a quiet Stirling running on waste heat or a flywheel unit that flattens spikes. The tech transfer office loves it, signs an industry partner with deep pockets. Clauses steer exclusive rights into a shell that never ships. Graduate students wander off to jobs. The publication limps out stripped of claims that would scare a licensee. What nobody knew at the time was how Dole-era IP deals could tunnel public findings into private vaults, with just enough motion to say progress and just enough friction to keep it off shelves. Standards committees read like deja vu. Minutes from transformer groups in the 1980s talk aging profiles, magnetization under harmonic distortion, field data required. Minutes from power electronics labs in the 1990s talk failure modes at high frequency, lack of long-term cert history. Minutes from building boards in the 200s talk fire behavior of novel insulations, smoke toxicity not fully characterized. The details change, the cadence doesn't. And if you cross-check, you find the same utilities, the same insurers, and sometimes the same individual consultants sitting on multiple committees. Liability memos seal the soft kill. A hospital's council blocks a thermophotovoltaic pilot with non-standard heat source interface, undefined warranty chain. A transit agency blocks ultracap buses with charge infrastructure incident risk, unclear indemnity. A utility blocks flywheels with catastrophic release scenario, exclusion not covered. None of those read ban. They all read not with our neck on the line. And because insurers copy each other's watchwords, the caution multiplies. Are you sitting down? One phrase, unknown long term, can add enough premium to kill a bid before a line item reaches the board. Media plays cleanup. First a crank label, then a both sides piece that pits lab data against a smirk, then nothing. The Tom Ogle cycle is the template, a burst of local coverage, expert interest, a tangle of contracts and legal smoke, and a hard stop. Later, explainer pieces roll in saying the physics never penciled, even when the inventor's patent still sits in the archive and witnesses swore they saw the car run. The point isn't proving Ogle right. It's watching how the narrative flips from open question to campfire tale right when a system lacks the courage to test, document, and conclude in public. FOIA trails give us the sharpest edges. The Invention Secrecy Act category list from the early 197s, pried loose by researchers, show headings like power supply, propulsion systems, and unique materials and devices. We don't get titles, we get bins, and those bins match the lanes we keep tripping in. Statistics the USPTO sent to watchdogs show thousands of secrecy orders still active decades later. In parallel, a 2024 academic study tracking patents once under secrecy orders found follow-on inventions dropped around them while the orders lasted, which means silence spreads beyond the single file. That's not theory, that's a measured chill. Procurement files add texture. City specs borrow state specs, which mirror utility specs, which quote standards committees that cite lack of field data. When an engineer slips in a performance-based clause, any core achieving less than X watts per kilogram at Y flux, a vendor protest forces a rebid, and the clause dies to ensure competition. Competition in that sentence means the old core wins by existing. Then there's the acquisition route. A startup prints room temperature sintered parts that pass lab tests. An OEM invests, requests exclusivity to align roadmaps, shifts program milestones out a year, then 2. Meanwhile, the OEM's legacy line keeps shipping. At year 3, a portfolio review calls the new process non-core. The startup's assets sell for pennies. The patent family's continuations stay alive just in case. That's a paper trail, not a theory. Unknown to many inside these rooms, private briefing decks move in lockstep with public safety lines. We've seen slides that use the same phrases across different boards. Premature deployment risk, ecosystem maturity, interop exposure, unbounded liability. Different bullets, same music. Match those dates to funding spikes for incumbents and droughts for rivals, and you get the rhythm of a moat being dug, not an argument being won. A micro story, a regional grid operator pilots high-TC superconducting cable in a corridor that's capacity strained. The pilot works. The post-mortem recommends further study, maintenance playbooks to be developed. The board asks for next steps. Legal circulates a memo. Until standardized maintenance training exists, exposure unacceptable. The training funding is in the project. That memo just froze. 6 months later, a capital plan expands a substation and adds another transformer instead. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. Paper's the perfect weapon because it looks like caution, not control. The embargo machine doesn't need to break laws, it uses them. It writes checklists that yesterday's gear aces. It writes fear into memos others must copy. It buys time, then sells it back to you as prudence. What ties it together is repetition. Families that vanish, standards that freeze, liability notes that echo, university IP rooted to quiet rooms, media arcs that end in fog, secrecy bins named for the very things we're missing. You can call that coincidence, or you can call it a machine that learned its lines and never forgot them. The coordination reveal. While we dug through dusty binders and FOIA dumps, patterns snapped into place. Are you sitting down? Because different rooms were singing the same song in the same key at the same time. First came the FOIA clusters, emails and memos from separate agencies that shouldn't sound coordinated but did. Premature deployment risk, unknown long-term, ecosystem maturity, different logos, same phrasing, we map dates, a transformer standards note in spring, a power electronics safety brief in summer, a procurement caution in fall, the lines marched like a script. Meanwhile, something else was happening in private decks. We found investor slides from utilities and OEMs that mirrored the public safety language almost word for word. A bullet in a standards committee, field data insufficient. A bullet in a boardroom, delay rivals, extend run rate on installed base. On paper, one guarded the public. In slides, the same words guarded cash cows. Here S where the stomach drops. Funding spikes lined up with kill decisions. A flywheel pilot earned praise in March. By April, an incumbent won a grant to study alternatives, and by June, the pilot's renewal died for budget alignment. A ceramic engine materials line hit a milestone. A week later, export flags tightened on key fibers, and the civilian program rescoped to defense needs. Money turned with the calendar right when the memos said, "Not yet." Inventor testimonies sealed the picture. Different decades, same 4 tactics. 1. Discredit seed doubt with fringe labels or leaked test footage framed as trickery. 2. Delay standards and certs ask for data only purchases can produce. 3. Dilute license the filing, peel the claims, fold it into a bigger portfolio and starve it. 4. Disappear, acquire quietly, continue pending forever and let interest die. Separate inventors, same bruises, same timeline notes on napkins they never meant to compare. Look, I'm gonna tell you something that's going to sound crazy but isn't. The law gave this cadence cover. The Invention Secrecy Act bins we saw, power supply, propulsion, unique materials, sit right over the lanes where these fights repeat. And a recent empirical study tracked what happens when secrecy orders clamp down. Follow-on inventions around those patents drop while the order holds. Not just patents, inventions. That means silence spreads. Meanwhile, liability memos showed copy-paste muscle. A hospital's counsel in 1991 used a paragraph that rhymes with a utilities memo in 2004 and a transit insurer's note in 2016. Undefined warranty chain. Catastrophic release scenario. Non-standard hazard classification. Different hazards, same net. Who wrote the first one, we asked. Nobody remembered. Everyone used it. What nobody knew at the time was how standard staffing helped it hum. The same engineers and consultants sat on transformer, power electronics, and building materials committees. Not villains, busy pros paid by firms with stakes. If a single voice raised, performance-based spec now, 3 others answered, maturity, liability, interoperability. They weren't wrong, they were aligned. Then we found the echo that made us stop. An agency brief from the late 1990s warned that distributed generation at scale challenges grid visibility and settlement. Months later, a private deck to investors said, edge power erodes rate-based growth, managed through certification pacing. The public line was grid safety. The private line was margin. The words that bridged them were maturity and safety. This was the moment everything changed for us. Caution wasn't just cautious. It was synchronized, not a smoking gun, a smoking chorus. When storage knocked, the answer was safety. When ceramics knocked, manufacturing risk. When mesh knocked, interference. When open ledgers knocked, vendor sensitivity. Different masks, same mouth. Stakes jumped right there. If this is structural, not episodic, you can't fix it with one heroic pilot or one viral demo. You need to break a rhythm, and rhythms fight back. Trust me, you're not ready for the price of pushing, because when people did, the machine got personal, careers bent, labs shuttered, lawsuits arrived like weather, and one rare win, proof the vault can be opened, made the retaliation louder. That's where we go next. The costs of knowing. Are you sitting down? Because once you press, the machine stops being abstract. It learns your name. A lab director in the Midwest greenlit a flywheel replication with public dashboards. 3 weeks later, his grant renewal missed a window. HR called it restructuring. He packed his books in copy paper boxes while the pilot paged 404D overnight. Meanwhile, something else was happening across town. A young standards engineer pushed a performance clause for Amorphoscore transformers, score on losses, not legacy steel. That night, a consultant emailed her boss a professional courtesy note questioning her judgment under commercial pressure. Her speaking slot vanished. The clause died in committee. Then came the paper knives. A ceramic engine startup survived on bridge loans while a partner aligned roadmaps. When milestones slipped by the partner's edits, the same partner sued for breach, seized the IP, and folded it into a portfolio marked strategic. Founders mortgaged houses. One filed for bankruptcy. The docket said business dispute. The shop floor called it a funeral. Standards failures got engineered too. A utility staged a flywheel drop test beyond spec, reported catastrophic ejection, and leaked the clip. Missing from the footage, the containment ring they'd agreed to install. The memo said public safety first. The pilot's insurer said, "We saw the video." A rare wind slipped through. A hospital ran GUN converters, mesh comms, and edge leak detectors through a hurricane and never lost a ward. For 1 month, procurement calls poured in. Then the counterattack. Unapproved network. Unsupported device physics. Non-compliant logging. The hospital's council rewrote the upgrade plan back to vendor clouds and copper. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. Retaliation is policy wearing human shoes. And yet the win proved the vault opens. That's why the pushback hurt. The exit plan, how we reopen the vault. Look, I'm gonna tell you something straight. We don't beat this by yelling at gatekeepers. We beat it by changing the game boards they use, tests, risk, money, and demand. This rabbit hole goes deeper, but the path out is real. It starts in small rooms with open doors. Open replication networks first, test cells, public data, shared IP. No black boxes, no trust us. Just open rigs people can copy. Think of it like this: a flywheel in a high school auto shop, a Stirling on a bakery oven, a CDI skid behind a farm tap. Cameras on, sensors streaming, raw logs posted nightly. You don't ask a committee for permission, you hand them a URL. The stakes are simple: make failure visible and improvement contagious. When something breaks, we show it and fix it, so insurers can stop guessing and start pricing real risk. And because designs are open, nobody can buy the patent and bury it. You can't embargo what 1,000 garages already know how to build. Meanwhile, something else has to move with it: liability pools for first adopters and safe harbor laws. Early buyers always sit in the blast zone if a clause goes sideways, so we stack the deck. Cities and co-ops chip into a pooled policy dedicated to novel classes: flywheels, TPV panels, ultracaps, microturbines. Premiums come down because the pool sees the raw telemetry from those open test cells. Risk isn't a rumor anymore. Safe harbor laws do the legal part. If you run an approved open spec and publish your data, you qualify for capped liability while the standard matures. We already do this in medicine with right to try. We can do it in infrastructure with right to prove. Standards need a new lane, call it Track B, provisional paths for novel classes. Today's codebooks are brick walls, Track B is a scaffold. You pass a limited, performance-based checklist. Containment holds at X, emissions stay below Y, failure is graceful under Z, and you operate under a time-limited license while data accumulates. Each quarter, logs roll up to the standards body, the spec tightens in public. No closed rooms, no legacy vendor veto. If you meet the numbers, you run. If you don't, you fix or you stop. That's it. We stop pretending yesterday's test for steel makes sense for glassy cores and ceramics, And we stop demanding 5 years of field data before the first order exists. Now procurement, this is where we flip demand from a whisper to a wall. Cities become early demand anchors, not speeches, purchase orders. You write performance first specs math can't dodge. Transformer core losses below at B flux. Converter efficiency above C across D load. Containment passes E joules at F RPM. Name outcomes, not materials. Then you pre-commit to volumes with milestone gates. We'll buy 50 units if the open test cell hits these marks for 90 days. You let 5 vendors try, not one, and you publish everything, winners and failures, so the next cohort starts smarter. Payments clear via narrow-purpose cash rails tied to milestones, so small shops don't die waiting on paper. And you protect the buyer with the liability
Financing
pool,
is
not
the
a
oxygen.
vendor's fine print. Mission first funds and prize guarantees beat death by runway. A mission fund stacks patient capital around open specs, not closed startups. You don't bet on one company, you back the class. A prize guarantee pays out when a public test crosses a line everyone can see. 100 kW Stirling module hitting 32% net on waste heat for 1,000 hours. Or amorphous core transformer field loss under X for a year. Paperwork can't steal a finish line if the finish line lives on a dashboard. On top of that, use pay-for-performance contracts. Cities and hospitals agree to pay a slice of verified savings to whoever installs and maintains the tech under the open spec. The meter decides, the check follows. Behind the scenes, we fix the incentives that let standards drift into stall mode. Track B committees must reserve 1 voting seat for an adopter who runs the equipment and publishes logs, 1 seat for an insurer who prices the pooled risk, and 1 seat for a public auditor who signs the data. Vendor reps speak, but they don't hold the pen. Meetings stream, minutes post in days. You want to argue ecosystem maturity? Fine, show your dataset, not your logo. Unknown to most buyers, underwriters want clarity more than they want no. So we give them clarity. The liability pool uses the same open telemetry to refine premiums in near real time. Hundreds of units reporting vibration spectra, temperature envelopes, trip logs, and maintenance events. A failure in Tampa nudges premiums a hair in Toledo. A containment validation in Boise nudges them back. This changes everything. Risk stops being a ghost story and becomes a priced curve you can live with. Now you'll hear the old chorus: unproven, unsafe, unstable, uneconomic. So we plant counters in the frame. Outcome dashboards run live in public, emissions, losses, uptime, response to faults, and safety events stamped by those secure hardware enclaves we talked about. Citizen juries sit over local rollouts the way they do for bond measures, briefed by independent engineers, not vendors, and vote on whether Track B trials expand or pause. If the numbers sag, the juries see it first. If they shine, the expansion writes itself. Sunlight takes the place of spin. Procurement hacks move parallel. We break the one-throat-to-choke trap that kills distributed solutions. Instead of one master vendor, you certify a bundle. Flywheel from A, GAN converter from B, mesh node from C, tied together by an open integration profile. If a link fails, the bundle holds. If a falters, D can slot in on the same spec. You kill the hostage clause, no more entire system void if you swap a box. Cities pre-bid integration labs where vendors prove interoperability in public. The videos and logs become the bid package. The phrase, proprietary integration, should make juries laugh out loud. There's a money move we can't skip. Public lenders and green banks pre-clear lines of credit against those pay-for-performance contracts and prize guarantees. A hospital that wants GAN, microturbines, and flywheels shouldn't need a billionaire donor. It needs a template loan that closes in weeks because the savings are visible on a dashboard and insured by the pool. Set it up so repayments auto-skim from verified savings. If the meter doesn't show the win, the vendor doesn't get paid. No stories, just digits. Standards Track B needs a kill switch and a green light switch, both automatic. Kill switch. If safety events exceed a threshold per operating hour across the network, pilots pause across the class until a fix merges and proves out in 3 sites. Green light. If a class posts 12 months over target across 50 sites with no major events, Track B graduates to Track A, permanent code with performance specs carved in plain English. Nobody can forget a win in committee if the rule says success writes itself. For universities, we end the quiet tunneling. Public grants carrying deployment intent must publish designs and test data under open licenses within a fixed window. Tech transfer deals rooted to industry partners can't hold exclusive rights for longer than a pilot period unless public deployments have started. If a partner shelves it, Exclusivity dissolves back to the commons. If a grad student builds a better Sterling, nobody gets to sync it with a continuation filed in a quiet cubicle. And yes, we deal with the secrecy wall. We won't smash it, we'll root around it. The moment a Track B spec hits its safety and performance bars in public, lawmakers can carve a presumption against secrecy orders for that class. Civilian energy conversion devices, non-radiative power electronics, non-lethal materials with published failure modes. If an agency still wants a secrecy order, they must publish a redacted rationale and face an independent review panel within 60 days. No more endless bins called power supply, swallowing civic tools for decades. Now remember, none of this is theory. It's plumbing. Who runs the test, who carries the risk, who writes the spec, who pays when the meter smiles. The machine we're up against speaks paperwork. We answer in its language, but open. We don't ask them to be brave. We make it routine to say yes. A micro story. A small city launches Track B for transformers. Spec says core losses under X. Telemetry posts hourly. Bids come from 3 suppliers, 1 local, 1 overseas, 1 legacy testing a new line. Liability pool prices the risk low because cores don't explode. Insurers like the open logs. The city installs 50 units, posts the savings. Residents can see the line for losses avoided on a public bill. A citizen jury votes to expand based on the dashboard. The legacy vendor, seeing the writing, opens its own amorphous line. The committee updates the code without a fight because the proof is already on the screen. Nobody needed a hero. They needed a process that didn't confuse prudence with paralysis. Trust me, you're not ready for how fast this snowballs once the first 3 classes clear. Track B flywheels feed the edges. GAN cools the boxes. Amorphous cores cut bleed. CDI clears wells. Sterling sip heat. And the money moves same day through narrow-purpose rails so vendors don't drown in receivables. Open ledgers stamp every bid, change order, and payment into a public trail. So the old "we tried" that myth dies under a timeline you can scroll. Brace yourself. The exit plan isn't a single door. It's a hallway of small, locked rooms. We pick them open with the same 5 tools: open replication, pooled risk, provisional standards, demand anchors, and honest money, over and over until the vault doesn't look like a vault anymore. It looks like the way we build. The "we tried that" mirage. This is going to sound crazy, but the most effective stall is a shrug. We tried that. 3 words and a decade dies. It works because it feels safe. If a smart team failed once, why throw good money after bad? Here's how the mirage gets built. First, pick a narrow pilot with the wrong metrics. Test a Sterling on flame instead of waste heat, then complain it's too expensive as a heater. Run ultracaps on a route without top-up stations, then say range is bad. Put amorphous core transformers on a feeder with lousy power factor, then call losses unchanged. On paper, the box was tested. In reality, the test was rigged to miss the point. Then comes the paperwork wrap. A post-mortem writes did not meet objectives, but the objectives were backwards. The memo circulates. A trade press blog repeats the line minus the context. 5 years later, a new manager pulls the old PDF and kills a fresh proposal with 1 sentence. We tried that. A micro story. A coastal utility ran a flywheel pilot in a substation famous for voltage flicker. The unit smoothed the waveform exactly as designed, but the success metric the board approved was reduce annual fuel cost of peakers by 15%, and they measured it in a mild weather year with low peaks. Savings looked small. The report said marginal impact. When a town asked for flywheels at a hospital, procurement waived the old file. We tried that. The truth. They never scored the thing on flicker stability, the reason they bought it. Another, a hospital tested thermophotovoltaics on a furnace door, unshielded from dust because retrofit funds were limited. Output fell as the lenses filmed over. The memo said insufficient durability. The fix, cheap shields and a weekly wipe, never made it to the board. We tried that. So how do you break the mirage? You audit the test against the job. If a Sterling is for waste heat, score watt-hours per unit of recovered heat, not competes with gas boilers. If ultracaps need top-ups, install the bars and count cycle life, not range on an empty route. If flywheels fight flicker, measure power quality and outage minutes, not annual gas spend. And you pin the score to public dashboards tied to the spec, so the next person can't hand-wave from a PDF. If a test failed a fair metric, fine, close the door. But if the metric was off, reopen it and rerun it on the right field. The "we tried that" line only works when the details stay buried. Look, I'm gonna tell you something plain. The first false ending is memory loss on purpose. The cure is receipts. When the record shows what was actually asked and actually delivered, the mirage stops fooling anyone. The adoption trap. Beat the mirage and you hit the next wall. We can't adopt until others adopt. The network effect becomes a moat. Everyone waits for everyone, pilots multiply, and nothing flips to standard. Here's the pattern. A city transit group loves ultra-cap buses, but the depot uses old chargers. We'll try 2 routes when 3 depots upgrade. The depots say they'll upgrade when 5 routes commit. Finance wants volume pricing to approve either. Therefore, nobody moves. Therefore, the pilot stays a pilot. The adoption trap isn't technical, it's social math cooked to stall. It shows up in comms too. A hospital wants a mesh backhaul that routes around tower failures. It says, we'll go mesh when the county does for interop. The county says, we'll go when the hospitals do for demand. A year goes by, a storm proves the point. Everyone nods, another year goes by. So we break the loop with 3 moves. Seed demand, pre-commit supply, and ensure the in-between. Demand seeding looks like this, pre-orders with milestones. A city posts, we'll buy 100 amorphous core transformers over 12 months if units hit X loss on the public testbed for 90 days. That's not a wish. It's a binding lane with gates. Vendors can tool up without guessing because the order lives on a page, not in a speech. Then you stack cross-compatibility. Don't let interoperability be a stick to beat you. Define a skinny open profile, how an ultra-cap bus handshakes with a top-up bar, how a mesh node authenticates on a shared channel, how a flywheel signals a trip. Certify to that, not a vendor's garden. Now multiple builders can slot into the same lane and no single supplier can hold the rollout hostage. Meanwhile, public buyers need a risk umbrella or they'll blink. That's the pooled liability we built in Act 3. Early deployments get covered if they follow the open spec and stream logs. If a failure hits, the pool pays first, not a transit director's career. Underwriters price the pool off live data from Track B deployments, not fear. Courage stops being personal. A micro story, a cold climate city wanted ultra-cap buses but froze at the depot math. They flipped the trap with phased bars, 10 top-up poles on the busiest stops, paid for by a prize guarantee. X on first million cycles without incident. They pre-ordered 20 buses contingent on meeting the public spec. 2 vendors certified. The pool wrote a rider. Within 6 months, the bars ran. Within 9, the second depot joined. Within a year, the old needs full network first excuse sounded silly. Drivers liked the torque. Mechanics liked no battery swells in winter. Riders didn't care, they just got on the bus. You can do this with mesh. Start with hospitals and fire stations on an open profile, not a county-wide flip. With water, seed CDI skids at farm taps, then schools, then neighborhoods with a city pre-commit behind a published loss curve. With transformers, swap at feeders with the worst losses, prove the savings on meter, then roll onward. The first 10 make the next 50 cheaper. The first 100 make the next 1,000 obvious. One more hack, don't let ecosystem readiness be an infinite bar. Write sunset dates for pilots. If this class meets targets for 12 months across 50 sites, we exit pilot and enter procurement. Put the date on a wall. Force the meeting. If the numbers are there, the adoption trap has nowhere to hide. Trust me, you're not ready for how many network effects vanish when someone draws a small circle, funds it, insures it, and locks the handshake. The loop breaks. The bus rolls. The spec gets real teeth. And right when you think you're through, the old story comes roaring back with a new mask, scarcity. That's the last trap. The scarcity narrative returns. Beat the adoption trap and the last defense rolls out like clockwork, a media blitz that says you're risking lives, breaking rules, and hurting the little guy. It's unsafe. It's unstable. It's unfair. The words feel different. The move is the same. Freeze the lane. Here's how it lands. A morning show runs a segment on a single flywheel incident from a decade ago, stripped of context, looped with scary B-roll. An op-ed warns that mesh networks could aid criminals. Never mind that hospitals used it to keep charts alive when towers died. A white paper funded by incumbents calls ultra-cap buses niche, points to a snowstorm in a city that never installed top-up bars and declares failure. Then policy joins in. A bill drafts temporary moratoriums on non-standard grid equipment until comprehensive studies conclude. A regulator floats stability fees for distributed power that quietly wipe out the savings. A watchdog group with a friendly name claims open ledgers expose vendors, while procurement scandals, somebody's cousin's HVAC contract, go unmentioned. Meanwhile, insurers hike premiums, pending clarity, even as Track B dashboards show clean safety lines. From their perspective, this sounds like stewardship. Keep people safe, don't rush, protect consumers. And yeah, there are real edges. Every tool has a failure mode. But watch the pattern. The scare stories spike as soon as performance crosses from curious to undeniable. The volume knob twists right when the exit looks real. So we counter with sunlight and structure. Transparent dashboards, live, not quarterly PDFs, show emissions, faults, uptime, and savings stamped by secure enclaves. Public trials run on camera with citizen juries briefed by independent engineers, not vendors. Real-time audits track who touched what, when, and how a failure was handled. If a unit trips, it's on the log in minutes, fix and all. No rumor can outrun receipts. Fairness attacks need a similar frame. It's unfair to small vendors, flips to every qualified builder sees the same open spec, the same price guarantees, the same pay for performance. It hurts workers, flips to local install and maintenance jobs you can't offshore. It destabilizes the grid, flips to measured stability events per operating hour, trending down in public view. We don't outshout them, we outmeasure them. A micro story. A city rolled out Amorphoscore transformers under Track B. A think tank blasted ratepayer risk on day one. The city pointed to a live page, core losses, feeder temps, outage minutes, all better. After a month, residents saw the savings line on their bills, losses avoided. The think tank pivoted to vendor sensitivity. The city published every bid, change order, and payment on an open ledger. The scare faded. The numbers stayed. Brace yourself. Scarcity returns as a story because the business of scarcity needs a story. Our job isn't to win the debate. It's to leave so much public evidence that the story can't stand. When risk is priced from raw logs, when ethics are set by citizens in daylight, when performance is a graph on your phone, fear has less to cling to. And when the last headlines move on, something simple remains. Power that wastes less, water that costs less, machines that last longer, bills that don't bite. That's not ideology. That's groceries, rent, and time back. What changes if we win? Once you see the machine and how to root around it, there's no going back. The crisis wasn't fate, it was process. So here's the move. Subscribe if you want the playbooks, the open specs, and the first cities stepping into Track B. Then send this to one person who thinks we tried, that is the end of the story, and ask them to look at the dashboards with you.